Hey everyone, welcome back to the Margaret Fontana Media podcast. I'm your host, Margaret Fontana. As we wind down another year and get ready to embrace a brand new one, which I can't believe this year has flown. So I wanted to take some time today to really reflect on this past year, talk about setting goals, and talking about the new year, what you can actually do, some tips and tricks that I've actually implemented in my own goal setting from last year into this year. And there's something called, or what I ended up calling, the good list. This has nothing to do with Santa's list, but if you want to learn a little bit more about goal setting, reviewing all of the things that worked for me and that I wanted to share with you today, grab a coffee, get your notes out, whether it's on your phone or just taking mental notes. This is going to be a really good episode. So let's get into it. All right. So I want to start with reflecting on the year and kind of, thinking about how I wanted to approach coming into 2024 and all of those tools that I ended up implementing for myself. So this year in 2024 was a whirlwind, I think, for a lot of people. I think there were a lot of highs. There were a lot of things that I think we all kind of had to deal with together. I mean, let's not forget, we are still kind of like in a post COVID pandemic world. We've had so many changes. We've had an election. We have strange things going on in the world. And I think we are like in a moment where we kind of really have to work on our coping skills. We have to work on our worth. We have to figure out what works for us. We have to work on our boundaries, all while leveling up and trying to take care of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally. There's so much involved in, everyone wants to be successful. Everybody wants to have money. Everybody wants to do all these things. But deep down, the true success is, in my opinion, peace, emotional and emotionally safe. I always say emotional safety. And that means, surrounding yourself by people who love you, support you, who don't put you in a position to make you feel terrible or at risk of anything. So, those pieces are extremely important. And those are things, I'm not a physician or a therapist, but I can tell you from personal experience, these are all important elements to include in how you would define your own success or your own kind of like personal peace. So I think it is important to kind of pause and reflect on everything we've experienced, before rushing into the new year. So what about you? So if you're listening to this right now, I would encourage you to think about a few things. What were your biggest wins this year? I mean, I could tell you I've had a lot of great wins this year, and these were things I actually wrote on paper. These were things I put on my vision board. You can't see, but in my office here, I have a pin board here. I have a vision board to my left. I have a board behind me of actually all of the wins. I have something in front of me here, which is like kind of poster paper that I keep up. It's like one of those post-it poster papers that I keep up to give myself a constant reminder of like where I want to go. So it's like in front of me, and it's like very interesting because you think forward thinking, like where do I want to go? It's in front of me. So that's why I keep this in front of me. My board off here to the side are like more affirmation type posts, so every day I have things like today's a fantastic day, treat yourself well, have grace and compassion for yourself. So these are my antidotes of how I keep things, in a state of constant reminder for myself. So take a look at like what were your biggest wins for the year. What challenges did you face and how did you overcome them? And challenges can be small and challenges can be big. And sometimes, big can overwhelm you. And then sometimes if you have a lot of challenges, smaller challenges, it can feel like one big thing. So, but look at the positives on that and say to yourself, like how did I get through that? Right. So here I am. Today's another day. That was like 2 weeks ago. I got through that though. How did I get through it? Some things could be severe. I know like coming from, again, when I do these podcasts and these episodes, this is strictly purely my opinion, my experiences. I share information either about expertise or this type of episode where we're going to talk about just like goals and things that have like worked for me, which might be helpful for someone else to know. So you kind of have to like evaluate for yourself at all times. And then, looking at all the challenges, looking at all the wins, like how can you take all of those things and then package them, say, okay, here's what worked, here's what didn't, and let me bring it into the new year. I feel this type of reflection, and again, I do this for myself, so it's not about dwelling on like what didn't go right, but it's actually about celebrating the progress you've made. So no matter how small, and because progress is progress, in my opinion. So if you do this much and you're like, it really wasn't totally what I wanted to achieve, progress is progress. So if it's this much can mean that much in the bigger picture. So always celebrate the small wins and take those pieces, those little lessons, and then bring them with you as you're moving into the next stage, the next phase, the next whatever it is that you think you're moving into. Or if it's just time and you're moving into next week, how can I get through next week? What do I need to do to equip myself with the right tools to feel good? What are my needs? And you really have to ask yourself that all the time. What are my needs? How can I help myself? It's not about other people helping you. And again, I'm not a therapist, nor do I claim to be one anywhere. And so you have to ask yourself these questions. And this is an important exercise to really supply yourself with tools to get you through whatever it is you need to do. And while you're doing this, I mentioned it before, my affirmation that I keep here to the side is have grace and compassion for yourself. Because oftentimes while you're evaluating, while you're looking at your goals, while you're looking at the wins, if you're a type A personality type person, and you want to win, or you want to get to a successful state on something, or you want to be able to, accomplish whatever it is you're doing. If you're that type of personality, you are hard on yourself. And I think everybody's a little guilty of that, right? So you have to exercise some compassion and grace for yourself at all times. So let's move into actually setting some of those goals for the year. And so, now that we talked about, this context of the entire picture, I think there's always this pressure, right? It's like new year, new me, like everybody's into it. It's on social media. And don't get me wrong, I think again, social media has been one of my fortes for a very long time. It's part of my expertise. It's part of, who I am from a professional standpoint. It's what we use inside of the marketing, branding, production world to promote, to communicate, to engage. But I will say there is a little bit of a dark side to social media. I mean, there's probably a bigger dark side to social media, but it's up to you to decipher how to filter and use social media. You could fall into a black hole. If you're someone who stays on TikTok for hours and hours and hours, TikTok can ruin your life. Because once you watch one video that may have like sparked some type of trigger for you, it will feed you, feed you, feed you. So I would caution at all times, always using social media, and including for these new things for the new year. So this is why I'm talking about it. So if you're on social media, it's like set new goals, do all these things, you have to accomplish a million things. And you will see all these things, which some of them are okay, some of them are positive, and like that's fine. But you can't get caught up in all of that pressure. It's a lot of pressure to put on yourself if you're looking to like accelerate your business, accelerate your brand, accelerate whatever it is that you think you need to do in the new year. I would just caution around the pressure of, what more can I do in the new year? I think you just have to get really comfortable with yourself to understand how much you want to take on for the new year. So setting reasonable goals to me is the most important thing. Like the word is reasonable, and just, smaller reasonable goals. So I focus on like creating really intentional goals that align with my bigger vision. And so this is me. Again, I'm sharing some anecdotes of what it is for me and how I kind of set this up. And so I always look at the first thing, which is the why, my why, right? Why do I want to achieve this goal? Does it align with my values and my overall like mission with where I want to go? Um, if I can understand my why, it actually gives me motivation to be more consistent. And so I know what my why is. So that's the first question you should always ask yourself first. What is your why? If your why is like false, you're not going to move forward on anything. So like if you're phony on your why, you're not going to accomplish anything. And people see right through that, FYI. So if you're phony, if you're putting up things that like are not you, if you're speaking from a place that's not you, if you are positioning and packaging things that's not you, people see right through that. And so if you think that's part of your goals and you're like faking a persona to kind of answer your why, that never works. And people see through it. You won't get anything out of it. And so if like you're a big brand, you're a big business, small business, whatever you're in, people see right through that stuff and your why and your goals will never happen because you're at a dead stop. So you have to be authentic. You have to be for real. That's hard to do. You got to answer to yourself. You can't be, that's the other thing. Pleasing people is out. 2025. You cannot please anyone. Please yourself. That's how it works. It's all about answering your own questions first, helping yourself first. You know, there's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. It's true. This isn't about selfishness. And there's nothing wrong with actually exercising some selfish things. And, maybe that's more categorized under self-care, in my opinion. So I'm not telling you to be selfish. I'm telling you to actually look at all of those questions, look at the why, be authentic, be real about what it is that you want to accomplish. People pleasing is out. Like I said, that's like my tagline. People pleasing in 2025, so out. And being real is in. So if you can't actually conduct on those two things, in my personal opinion, again, I keep putting the disclaimer in, personal opinion, I don't think you're going to go anywhere. So reflect on that because that's what's really important. So I would move into, so I'm reflecting on my why. Then I'm going to look at breaking it down. So I'm going to look at like my big goals. And this is where like my vision board and my papers that I keep up is very helpful and useful for me. So I break down those bigger goals and then like I look like what's actually doable. What is actually tangible? So of those big goals that I have, like that I'm staring at right now, what can I actually execute on that will bring me closer to the bigger goal? So I write this down. So I reflect on my why, I break it down, I look at like what's actually doable, maybe right now. Then I say to myself, okay, what might be doable next month or after I accomplish something else that might help me get to the next tangible thing. You don't want to turn this into a checklist because that's not going to help either. You need to actually just like put it down on paper, write down exactly what it is you want to accomplish, add those smaller steps, like those tactical kind of things you can actually execute on. Like I could touch it, like here, I'm going to use my pen and I'm going to write and I'm going to go here and do this. And then I go and do that thing and I'll come back and I go, excellent, I accomplished that. And then that helps me get to, which is like the final part, which is celebrating my small win, right? Because that smaller little execution thing that I just did got me to a win, a smaller win. So every step forward for me is success, right? So that brings me to something that I get really excited about. Now, let me introduce you to what I was just alluding to in the beginning of the podcast, which is something I call the good list. And again, has nothing to do with Santa. It's not a naughty list. It's not a good list. It's not a Christmas present list, anything like that. But I call it the good list. This is something I keep everywhere that, like, let's say I have my desk. So if I'm in my home office, if I'm at my office, right? If I'm like in the field, if I'm on a production site set, the magical thing about iPhones or your phone in general nowadays is that this has so many apps on it. Like, you can take notes, you can do anything from anywhere. So those reminders, you could take a picture of your notes that are in your offices, whatever that is. You can take all those things with you. So the power, and I might call this episode "The Power of the Good List." I think that's going to be the title of this, because I like the way that sounds, because it is very powerful. And I kind of picked this up. I went to a conference, and I kind of was like, I wish I remember all the details, but I picked this up from like being away for like 3 or 4 days, and I just like kept writing down like all of the things that like were happening, which were completely amazing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like there's this, I'm going to follow up on that. There's this, and then I'm going to follow up on that. And then even smaller things like, oh, I just got a gift card for something because someone said thank you for helping them with this thing. That went on the list too. So what ended up happening was this started turning into a good list. And what I found started happening. So every day I would take a few minutes to write down all the good things that happened that day. So they were either big wins, they were like signing on for a new project, it was finishing a project, it was a small moment, it was a sweet moment, could be an intimate moment, someone telling you they love you, someone calling you and saying they're thinking of you, like little things, a message, a DM from someone who like cares about you. All these small things were like adding up. And then what I ended up like realizing was the more I focused on, whether it was at the end of the week, the end of the day, before I would go to bed, in the morning, I would say to myself, it shifts your mindset to start thinking about more of the positive. And then I started taking a good list and making it big. And I would put it in like every office I was in, right? So if I was like out in the field somewhere else doing whatever, I'd have the good list with me. In my other office, on the board in front of me, in front of my desk, I would have the good list. Here on my other affirmation board, I keep a running, I love notebooks, by the way, right? So we have our phones, which is an amazing tool. It's like does everything for you, right? But there is nothing more amazing than a good old fashioned like notebook, right? I love notebooks. So my niece actually gave me a notebook last year, and it has like it's beautiful. It's like has my name on it, it's engraved, and it turned into like my good list book, right? So that I can bring with me everywhere. And it's just like there's something about writing paper to pen and looking at it and saying like, yeah, that's exactly it. And again, I love big white poster paper. I love my Sharpies. I'm always doing that. So I think what I ended up realizing was, and again, this is all work. This is work. This is you working on you, right? And I had to go through a lot of things to kind of like get to where I am right now. No one is perfect. No one has all the answers. Nobody knows everything. Nobody's better than anybody else. These are all like true statements that I think and feel. So I think in the end, we're all works in progress. And so going back to my good list, it really taught me to appreciate the little victories, and it's helped me really, really, really stay focused on all the small things that contribute to my bigger goals. Um, it's a great way. So if you're the kind of person, this is also what I do at the end of every night. I mean, every day. Um, whether it's like I go to work, I'll go to the gym, I'll come back, settle in for the night, do my chores, do whatever it is I got to do to kind of like keep everything organized. And then, I make my green tea. This is also like part of the self-care that goes into my ritual, which is like I make green tea. I'll have like whatever it is, some type of fruit or, maybe nothing, just the green tea. And I really look at what I accomplished. I say to myself, like, okay, here's what's gone on all day. These are all the good things that have occurred. And some of them are just like lovely. Some of them are real, like I said, the smaller, um, human kind of good list things are so valuable. So whether it was someone calling you, someone telling you they're thinking of you, someone doing a favor for you, someone just, saying hi. These are also things that you can add to your list. It doesn't have to be all business, and I think that's the important part about looking at the good list. The good list can teach you to appreciate the little things, and little things are huge. So, and it takes you away from thinking about those negative things, because I'm not saying everything's rainbows and lollipops every day, because at the end of the day, you're also like, oh, what a day. There's a lot of stuff that we deal with every day. So I thought this was a good way to share something that I use. It's a tool. The good list is powerful because it helps you shift your mindset to only focusing on positive things that have occurred. These are all small things. I mean, they can be all small things, but even if they're big things, it really, and then when you start thumbing through your book, right? So like if I go through this book and like I look at like, okay, what's today? The 15th, 16th, 17th, like I'll look 14, what happened on the 9th, what happened on the 10th. And I look and I say, oh man, that's a lot of stuff. Look at that. We're so quick. We're so quick. Our attention span is like zero now. We are so quick. Like you hop on social media, you hop on TikTok, like your attention's like, this good list will help you because it helps you realign, refocus, you go back, and I would say this, like when we're talking about social media can be helpful. It's a tool, but I would not get caught up in it. And I would not recommend you start going down this rabbit hole of like new year, new me, all the pressure for your business, personally. It's a lot. It's a lot. And that's my opinion. Anyone else can have a different opinion, but I would focus on yourself. I would focus on this good list. It's a tool. It's a self-help kind of tool for yourself. And it's something that will help you even from a business perspective. You can use this in any exercise. You can use it with your teammates. You can use it with your coworkers as an exercise. An HR department can use this. Any type of business can use this. You can use it with your kids. You can use it like with anyone to be like, hey, let's do this exercise. Let's focus on like 5 things that happened over the last 2 weeks that have helped us really, move towards our goals. Or those goals can just be like, I want to feel good. Right. So maybe it's like, oh, what are 5 things that have contributed to you feeling better in the new year or last year, this year? What's helped you? It could be like maybe you started taking vitamins, like could be even stuff like that, like you started walking. Maybe you're doing 5 to 10,000 steps a day, which is hard to do, but that's on the list. That's on one of my lists, and it helps. It helps. It helps for clarity, helps to kind of alleviate a lot of stress. So this is kind of like the idea. So recapping this episode, and this is about the power of the good list. And this is about looking at and assessing perhaps your goals, perhaps what you've accomplished, and then taking all of those things and putting them into something that's tangible, digestible, tangible. So not overreaching, not overwhelming. Caution on using social media to overwhelm yourself with like new year, new me, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot. So I would say call to action, right? Here we are. And I'm going to end the episode here as we're kind of like doing a recap. So I would challenge you to grab that piece of paper, get a little notebook for yourself. Like I said, I'm all about notebooks. I have like 50,000 notebooks like on my shelf over here. I'll run through them. I write in them. I love to look at them at like the end of every time I'm like done with the notebook. I love to read through them and just like see what I have in there, because you will be surprised at how powerful it is to write these things down. And then you're like, wow, I did do those things. I did accomplish those things. So I would challenge you for the new year, get a notebook. Get one of those big post-it papers that you use for presentations, like slap it on the wall if you're not, if you don't have like pin boards or vision boards, whatever. Like you could do anything. Even, I'm a big fan of like these. These are like the post-it notes, right? So I'm a big fan of these. See, like you see how many notes I have, but I'm a huge fan of these. And this is really great because you can like make mini lists, always focusing on the positive, and it helps. And you can just like stick it place and be like, yeah, that did happen. Cool. All right, that's happening. I like that. It's moving me forward. So think about that. That's my call to action for you. So as we wrap up today's episode, I want to say thank you, especially thank you. And thank you for being part of my podcast community. I've been doing this for many, many years on the podcast. I started doing this as a way to understand how podcasting works. And now podcasting has so many ways you can actually produce. So this is my version of video podcasting. And there's so many great tools now out there. So if you want to add something small to your list for what you're going to do for your brand for the new year, I mean, put that on the list, like explore, like read an article about podcasting, was listening to Margaret Fontana Media's podcast. She gave me some great ideas. We'll look into, put it on the list. So I want to say thank you for being part of this, for listening, for sharing, and then for growing alongside with me on all of this. And there's so many other projects, as you know, if you follow me on social media, that I'm involved with. So I'm excited for what's ahead and in the new year. And I'm excited for everyone else and to see what you end up putting on your good list. So with that, I would like to say thank you for joining me. And if you guys have any thoughts, you have any suggestions or feedback, as always, please send me an email, margaret@margaretfontana.com, and I'll talk to you guys soon.